Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Building Subtext. Super excited to reveal the latest feature of Subtext, which has sort of always been in there, but now it's going to be much easier to navigate and to be able to focus on the different aspects of your story, and will likely help you understand how all of this works when you want to find out what your story is about. So I have a really basic just story idea just so I can show you what perspectives are all about. And over here in overviews, so those of you who've been with Subtext for a while, this has just changed a little bit. And then this is the story idea. Typical fantasy thing. It's not the greatest idea in the world, and this title is horrible. A bunch of elves decide to give up their magic so they can work in the mines with dwarves. It's fine. So then let's look at the 4 through lines. So we have 4 through lines, and now within each of those 4 through lines, you can have different perspectives. And what that means, and this has always been a part of Dramatica theory, but what that means is that you can hand off the perspective from one character to the next, and they'll likely be saying the same thing. They have the same purpose in the story. So the typical example is the ghosts in Christmas Carol, past, present, future, Marley. They're all basically saying the same thing. They just have a different take on it. That's what you would be doing. And actually, that would probably be a good example to use another time. But right now, I just have 2 different obstacle characters that are there to challenge Eleanor, which is the name the AI always uses, but whatever. That their whole purpose in the story is to challenge Eleanor's way of doing things, way of thinking of things, so that he, she, they can progress to the next level, or at least like be challenged to deal with their own personal issues and either grow through them, stick with them, all that stuff. So in a lot of stories, you just have one obstacle character, particularly if it's quite small. But if you want to be able to hand it off now, it's easy to track here in subtext. So for instance, I have Thrain and Garuk here. So we have Thrain and Garuk. So if I open up Thrain here, Thrain is a seasoned dwarf miner who embodies the traditional values of his people. Thrain is skeptical of the elves' decision, viewing it as a whimsical experiment rather than a genuine commitment. So he's another dwarf. That's kind of like the typical obstacle character that you might go with. His presence challenges Eleanor to confront her own doubts and insecurities. Okay, it's her. As he constantly questions her motives and capabilities, forcing her to dig deeper into her own resolve and identity. All right, so there's a dwarf who's like completely skeptical, doesn't think that, it's going to work out for you. And then the other one I came up with is Garuk, a wild-hearted human fighter barbarian emerges from a nomadic tribe infamous for their fierce and unrelenting way of life. Garuk has lived by the code of might and conquest, where diplomacy and cooperation are dismissed as weakness. Just skipping ahead, for Garuk, life is guided by the primal instinct to fight and conquer, creating an unspoken tension that forces Eleanor to confront her own ideals. So you can see they're likely going to be friends, maybe people on the party, but they're going to, even though they're coming from different points of view in their life and who they're about, in the story, they're going to be completely in charge of getting across the same thematic issues that are going on in here. So then what would that look like? So now with perspectives, so instead of just calling these through lines now, I have separate perspectives in here. And you can always add more, to all different things. If you want to track a certain group of characters in the objective story, you could set that as a perspective. You want to track different relationships. If you have separate main characters, as long as they're all dealing with the same issues, usually if you have different main characters, it's a completely different story form. But for right now, you can do it if you want to. So you have all these different perspectives, and the perspective now, if I just jump ahead, and if I come over here in the objective story, you'll see a bunch of stuff is missing, especially if you're from subtext from the past couple of years, you might think, oh, something's broken. But what's happened here is I have the objective story and the perspectives focus is set to all. So if I come in here, I can see all. And what all means is these are all the story points that I've actually gone in and illustrated. So right now there is an objective story domain of physics where I've talked about the physics in this story. And I have a feeling that this is not even close to being right because this is from something else. So let's just say I'm in here and I want to fix this so that it's actually the story that I'm working on. I'm just going to quickly brainstorm. And this should really quickly do. Yeah. The elves' decision to abandon their magical heritage to work in the mines introduces a conflict deeply rooted in the physics of the world. The elves, totally reliant on magic, must now adapt to the physical demands and limitations of mining. All right, that's actually kind of cool. I'm going to add that and get rid of this nonsense here. And then now we have an objective story domain story point that's focusing on physics. Understanding physics is not right. So I will hit this button here. And what that will do is that will align this illustration. So you can think of if this is the story point, it's all about physics. And this is the storytelling. The gap that bridges this gap between physics and all this storytelling is an illustration here. And I just tap this and it should get something. Oh, mighty. There. Perfect. So if you want an idea of physics, what that might be like, the mining is going to create a lot of conflict in the story. So that is, and then that's just the one set for, or it's the only one that's been explored. I can also look at the assigned ones to see all the ones that are assigned, and I can look at unassigned. If I go to the perspective, the one perspective that's there, which is for the objective story, then you'll see all these other ones in here that have yet to be developed. And because that last one I haven't assigned yet, it's not showing up here so that I can create more story points and then assign those to other stuff. So let me go back to all, and then now you'll see here the perspective button here. I should be able to do this, select that, and now it's a part of the bridging the divide, that focus, that perspective. And hopefully if I go here and I go this, yeah, perfect. So now you'll see it's here. So I've already done the objective story domain for that focus, but I have yet to do all these other story points, and then I can go ahead and develop those out. Same thing works across all the different through lines. I can always, up here at the top, this now says perspectives because it doesn't make sense for it to just say through line. So now if I go to perspectives, it has the one perspective there. I can modify it. It's the same thing that's in here, but just isolated to the particular through line. So I can come back up here, bridging the divide, the element choice. If I go to main character, here I have some story points that I developed while I was practicing and doing other kinds of stuff. So for her, I've done her domain and her problem. So her domain has to do with being stuck in a difficult situation, which is all her magical heritage and whether or not she can let that go. Her problem here is avoidance. So she's the kind of person that's always trying to avoid failure and disappointment. So she's always creating more problems for herself by running away from things. And that's actually pretty dope. That's cool. And then if I go into, and again, there's still more. If I set this, right now it's set to all main character. If I set it to just Eleanor, you'll see I have quite a bit more to develop in her. So it's a great way to remind myself, oh shoot, I still have to do these, but I've already done these other ones. So now if I go to the obstacle character, so now we'll look at Thrain and Garuk. So all I've done is this one, having a closed mind. And again, this one is a generic thing from test. So here is Thrain. So we're focusing on Thrain. So we're just going to see Thrain. And we have his perspective here. These are his story points. Let's develop out Thrain's perspective. Like, what is his fixed mindset? So when I go to brainstorm here using the AI, when I do the brainstorming here without throwing in any ideas, it's going to use what it knows about Thrain from the perspective, what's already been listed there. It's not going to talk about Garuk, right? So this is why I can just focus on the obstacle character in this location. Thrain's skepticism and adherence to traditional dwarf values challenges Eleanor's belief in her ability to redefine herself outside the realm of magic. So he's a bigoted dwarf. So I could pop that onto there. And then if I want to, I can align the illustration, believing in elves, or in this case, not believing in elves would be his particular bent on that. And that will be the thing that will challenge Eleanor's feeling of being stuck in a difficult situation. So personally, she's got her heritage, all this stuff that she's dealing with. And meanwhile, there's this prejudiced dwarf they hate they hate elves, don't believe in their magic, all that kind of stuff. So then that would be Thrain. And then if I switch now to Garuk, it should clear that out. Okay, so this is a good point. Now I have Thrain and Garuk, which is different from just Thrain. So you can have other story points where maybe you want to develop the obstacle character domain for both of them at the same time. Maybe you don't want to go through and do every single story point for every single perspective. That's fine. You can do them, the two of them together, and just work on their issue together. So for instance, let me go ahead and do that. If I do Thrain and Garuk, and then let's do their issue, and let's just see, combined, they have some issue dealing with hope. Now, let's see what let's see. Before I do that, let me try this. I'll just try and find one that's something about hope here. And it should come back with something being the last hope for a group. All right, maybe that's interesting. Let's do that. Their issue is something about being the last hope. So let's see what it comes up with. Looking at both Thrain and Garuk. Perfect. In this narrative, Thrain and Garuk serve as dual obstacle characters, each challenging Eleanor's journey. Thrain's skepticism, meanwhile, Garuk's disdain for diplomacy and his belief in strength through conquest create a palpable tension. His provocations compel her to test her limits and her unique identity. And it's, balancing between hope and dream. Let's go ahead and add that in there. Now that's a good start. Let's see. His constant questioning of her motives pushes her to dig deeper into her resolve, embodying the thematic topic of hope as she strives to become the last hope for her group. Oh, actually, that's pretty good. That's actually wonderful. And so now we have just Thrain and Garuk. And so then if I go back up to the top and I just look at Garuk, well, now the issue is gone because that issue is a part of just Thrain and Garuk, not Garuk, if that makes sense. So these are just things isolated to Garuk. So that I can go through and really build him out. If I want to go back and see the ones that are both of them, that's here. I think this one actually doesn't have anything yet, so I could probably develop that out if I wanted to. Or I think I could just clear it all and then it would totally disappear. And then now it's totally cleared. That one's fine. And I just have this stuff here. So Thrain and Garuk. And then if I go to just look at Thrain, again, we go back to his skepticism. This is just about him. And you can bounce back and forth between the two of them. And then that's pretty much it. If I want to, I could also go in and look at the story beats for them. And again, these are going to be a little bit different if you dealt with subtext in the past. So these are now, they look more like the story points so that you can see obstacle character transit 1. You can see what, who is dealing with it and what focus I'm in. It'll be much easier to deal with the story beats here. So if I just did one for Thrain, let's go ahead and create a story beat for Thrain here. And so his first thing is going to be about conscious, whatever the heck that means, right? So his first challenge to Eleanor is going to be something about thinking through things or what he thinks of elves. And let me just really quickly see what it comes up with. And here it comes. Okay. Thrain's skepticism manifests as a constant, grumbling presence in the mining camp, where his voice carries the weight of tradition and experience. All right, that's not too bad. So I will come up here. Let's see, what was that illustration there? So then that illustration conscious for Thrain is musing. So he's just always constantly thinking about it. And that's going to challenge what Eleanor is going through in her own personal through line. Like if I went to her personal through line. Oh, I already have some, I think, don't I? Yeah. So she's exploring how things are changing. She ventures into the ancient mines driven by the hope of forging her own path and finding belonging behind her family's magical expectations. And meanwhile, Thrain is in here just mumbling and grumbling and being just a general pain in the butt. Now, if I want to, I can also go ahead and this is okay. This creates tension and division. As Eleanor struggles to maintain unity and morale, her leadership questioned at every turn. His presence forces Eleanor to confront her own insecurities, as she must prove not only to Thrain, but to herself that her path is the right one. But maybe I really want to push it and see if I can make it even better. So another thing I've done recently, which I'm really super excited about, is this. If you hit review, this now calls out to OpenAI's new O1 model and really thinks through everything, really considers all the different things that are going on with this story beat, and then will come back with an answer as to how good it is and then how you could possibly improve it if you want to. Uh, then you'll be able to make it that much better. All right. Let's see what it came up with. All right. Cool. The storytelling effectively establishes Thrain as an obstacle character, creating a compelling dynamic with Eleanor, whose leadership and progressive vision are put to the test. His adherence to traditional methods includes a palpable conflict within the mining camp, aligning with the obstacle character transit one definition. This tension not only challenges her leadership, but also sets a foundation for her potential growth. All right. However, the narrative falls short in fully integrating the conscious method, which requires characters to be aware of the consequences of their actions, yet still make flawed decisions. Thrain's role, while effective in representing tradition and skepticism, lacks the depth of conscious awareness of the negative impacts of his choices. Similarly, Eleanor's internal struggle is not sufficiently highlighted in terms of her awareness of potential negative outcomes. So what this is doing is it's pushing it, like, this is fine, it would work, but this is pushing a little bit further to really get to conscious as a source of conflict. And then here are a bunch of recommendations for improvement. So her dilemma: Eleanor knows that adopting the elves' innovative techniques could significantly increase the mind's productivity. However, she is fully aware that these methods might lead to the displacement of longtime miners and disrupt the camp's harmony. Despite understanding these negative consequences, she pushes forward. It's challenging her to really think through these things. Or Thrain is fully aware that the traditional mining methods are less efficient and pose safety risks, yet he refuses to change, believing that maintaining the old ways preserve the camp's identity. His conscious choice to prioritize tradition over safety creates potential hazards. So now we're saying his conscious choices are what are creating the conflict, which is much more specific and way deeper and so much better than just this basic thing here. And then lastly, miner's perspective. A seasoned miner aware that the new techniques could reduce the workload, yet resists learning them out of fear of failure and attachment to familiar routines. That actually sounds like what Eleanor is going through. His conscious resistance fosters a divide as younger miners embrace the change while he obstructs progress. So, and then this is something else too. It's a perspective. So it could just be somebody else who is acting as a proxy for Thrain, who is going through and, essentially, well, that's something Thrain would say, but then Eleanor hears it, and then that would work just as well. So this is available in everything. This is available in all the Storybeats. And I really love how detailed and well thought out this is. And it really pushes your storytelling. So make sure you try it out. You can try it out in all the different story points. So here she is in a difficult situation. Her problem of avoidance, right? Her fear of failing in the magical realm. This one's pretty good. Let's see if we can make it even better. So you can always just go in and check to see, like, all right, how can I make this better? Really think through how this story point works in the narrative, and then how can I improve it? Give me some ideas for making it better. And here it goes. And the storytelling of Eleanor's journey effectively captures the essence of avoid. All right, the narrative successfully establishes a clear context for her avoidance, linking it to her fear of failure within a magical realm. However, the narrative could benefit with more specific examples and a deeper thematic integration, incorporating specific scenes where Eleanor actively avoids situations would enhance the portrayal. That's great because this is kind of just a general understanding of it. So what are some more specifics? A specific incident of spell avoidance during a crucial magical duel meant to prove her abilities. Eleanor freezes, choosing not to cast a spell she hasn't perfected. This moment not only underscores her fear of failure, but also leads to a loss that impacts her standing within the magical community. That's great. That's somebody who is going through, and because they're avoiding, in a specific instance of it, she's avoiding casting spells because of fear of failure, creates problems. Missed opportunity in the mines. A rare magical mineral is discovered in the mines, presenting Eleanor with a chance to innovate new spells. Her hesitation to participate results in another mage taking the lead. Now that's kind of cool, causing tension within the mining team. And then family ritual avoidance. During an annual family ceremony that celebrates their magical heritage, Eleanor chooses to stay away, leading to a confrontation with her family. This event not only exposes the rift her avoidance has created, but also serves as a catalyst for her realization of the necessity to confront her fears. That's perfect. So make sure you use that. That's available to everybody. And I hope you enjoy this look at the new perspective feature in Subtext. I'm really excited about it because it really helps explain how all of it comes together. And like I said, it's always been there in the background, but it was kind of difficult to pick and choose which ones you wanted. I really hope that this new approach where you can go through and just quickly choose who it is you want to focus on, find the ones that haven't been developed yet, develop those story points and those story beats, make it much more enjoyable to work with Subtext and to work with Muse. And all of this is available in Muse. When you jump over there, you'll see perspectives listed there. Perspectives are just going to be all the main character, obstacle character, relationship story, and objective story through lines. And then overviews will be everything else. So just the basic storytelling. And then that's it for the new perspectives feature. If you have any questions or you have anything that you want to go over, please let me know. Otherwise, I will see you next time, and I hope you have a really great time writing this fall. Talk to you soon.